In this part, Lucy shares how her selfish attempts to sabotage her son's personal life backfired and destroyed the life she was trying to build. The seduction of her son's friend, described in the previous part, led to catastrophic consequences. I sense some signs of progress. Lucy continues to criticize and blame her son, but changes in her emotional tone, word choices, and other subtle signs suggest that the armor of her denial has begun to crack. Perhaps she will eventually learn to understand and value the emotions of others. In my opinion, only after this will she have a real chance to build a healthy relationship with her son, Alex. Right now, she's only at the beginning of that journey, but I hope your comments will be helpful.
The next morning after I seduced my son's friend, I felt proud. I had achieved my goal. I thought everything was going to go back to following my plan, and that I'd finally be in control again. Sam would definitely want more, and an affair with a younger man would boost my self-esteem and keep me entertained. Sooner or later, my son would find out, and he'd certainly drop a friend like that. That way, I'd get my pleasure and neutralize the threat to my influence over Alex. Maybe I'd even put on a scene, pretending to be hurt and heartbroken, blaming Alex for forcing me to give up on love. Brilliant, isn't it? There's no way Alex would tolerate my relationship with Sam, so he'd have to break off their friendship. But if I managed to convince Alex that I was truly in love with Sam, he'd feel guilty for breaking my heart. That guilt would bind him to me completely. I'd be the only person left in his life. But first, I just needed to get Sam out of the house. It was too soon for Alex to see us together. I needed a bit more time to enjoy my new lover before the next phase of the plan. But what came next was a shock. First of all, Sam just coldly slipped out early in the morning. He was distant and unfeeling. Maybe he was uncomfortable with the fact that I was more than twice his age. I could understand that. But he acted more indifferent than embarrassed, like I was just his toy, not the other way around. He left long before Alex woke up, so my son had no clue about what happened. But I didn't have Sam's phone number or any social media contacts. If I lost the initiative now, he'd control the terms of our relationship, and I couldn't let that happen. With those thoughts, I turned to my son for money. And then came the second disappointment in a row. I expected gratitude, material, not verbal. After all, I was the one who talked Javier into taking my boy in. I basically set up his whole career. What? It was a starting point, and I expected a proper return on investment. I'd raised him for years. I had every right to expect that my efforts would yield tangible results. Something I could count and spend. But instead, Alex brought home a cheap cake and gave me a hug with a "Thanks, Mom." That's it? For all my sacrifices? I reminded him that now that he was 18, the child support had stopped, and groceries were expensive. I hinted that it would be nice if he started covering some of the costs. Of course, I meant all of them, but I knew he'd just started working. I was willing to give him time to build up. And besides, my back hurt and I needed a massage. Then I told him my phone was broken. And you know what? It didn't work. He just brushed me off and went to the pharmacy for aspirin, for his headache. That's when I started to feel like something was wrong, but I had no idea what was really going on. After that, Sam kept coming over with Alex several more times. But Sam acted cold and distant. As if nothing had happened between us. I even started to think he was mocking me, provoking me to show emotion, knowing I couldn't do that in front of my son. Eventually, I cornered Sam when Alex was in another room. He said quietly, coldly, that he'd be fine seeing me once a week. But only in a motel, one he would choose. I was furious at his arrogance, but maybe it was some sort of fetish? I agreed anyway, and we did meet up a few more times in a cheap motel on the edge of town. Every time, Sam remained distant. Honestly, I didn't enjoy it, but I kept going, just to prove to myself that I was still desirable to a younger man. But it only chipped away at my self-esteem. Still, the worst was yet to come. A few months later, I happened to see Alex on the street, holding hands with some girl. I had never seen her before and had no idea he was in a relationship. How could he hide something like that from me? Why didn't he tell me right away that he liked someone? And seriously, he's way too young to even be thinking about things like that. He used to go on dates too, but I always tried to spoil his romantic mood. It was for his own good. All these girls only wanted his attention and time, of which Alex already had so little. I remember how Alex's girlfriends tried to impress me. When was that? Back in school, when my son was 14, 15, 16 years old. He introduced me to 2 or 3 girls he was dating at different times. I speak as if he was dating several girls at once, but I raised my son differently. Of course, he knows what loyalty is. But to me, his teenage crushes all looked the same. It was funny watching how those girls politely smiled in response to my sarcastic comments. They must have been impressed by the fact that my grown-up son lives with me and, for my sake, took on a dirty job. They understood that I was the main woman in his life. At least, they were supposed to understand that. But I didn't like any of them. One was too loud, another was awkward. These types always count on eventually pushing you aside. I saw a threat in each of them. And I didn't let them stay. Not openly, no. I just created tension, remarks, hints. My son got angry, but I played the role of the offended one. How could it be, my opinion no longer matters? But now my son is 18, and I'm sure this won't be as innocent as it was in school. As soon as I saw this girl, I immediately felt it. She would hate me as soon as she realized who I am to my son. She was one of those who smiles, looks you straight in the eye, speaks calmly, but is internally ready to fight for her place. And he, my boy, was always soft, attentive, and I made him that way. One glance was enough for me to realize, she's trying to pull him away from me. And what can I do? I can't seduce his girlfriend, right? When Alex came home, I staged a scene, complete with hysterics. I'm good at playing with strong emotions and putting on a real show. I tried to accuse him of not paying attention to me. I told Alex that he replaced me with some strange girl. I also told him he wasn't being honest with me and had plenty of secrets from me. He listened to my previous accusations silently and indifferently, but when Alex heard the accusation of lying, he laughed. He looked like a villain from a Hollywood movie. Evil laughter, cold gaze at me. Where did I go wrong? After laughing at me, Alex simply got up and left. I tried to stand in his way, but he pushed me aside. That's when I made a mistake. I swung at him to slap him. I know, I got carried away. But Alex grabbed my hand and squeezed it so hard that I could only cry out in pain. Alex let go of my hand without a trace of remorse and calmly walked out. Until this point, that was the last time I saw him. Alex simply disappeared from home. No goodbyes. I didn't even have time to explain. I didn't want to lose him. It's all Sam's fault. I realized that Alex knows everything about my affair with his friend. But then why did my son stay silent all this time? I didn't make Sam start this relationship. And I didn't cheat on anyone, I wasn't with anyone at that time. But no arguments or usual manipulations could work anymore because I couldn't get in touch with Alex. He didn't answer calls or messages. Then I broke into his room. I thought I'd find a way to contact my son. But instead, I found something else. Imagine my shock when I opened the door and saw that the room was almost empty. Only furniture remained, a bed, a wardrobe, a desk with a chair, and that's it. Alex's laptop, his books, his posters, even those awful movie posters of his that I never liked, all of it was gone. My head spun, and I sank to the floor. My son simply disappeared from my life, like data from a disk after formatting. Of course, I called the police, but they told me that since my son is an adult, I couldn't just declare him missing. Of course, I went to Alex's work, but they told me he had already quit a week ago. Where else could I search for him? I didn't know where he spent his free time, which places he went to, who he hung out with. I had no threads to pull on. This shattered me. Suddenly, I realized that I didn't know my own son. I thought of him as my property, my personal project. But it turned out that I had no real power over him. The only thing I could think of was to find my son through Sam. In 2 days, we have our next meeting at that motel. I admit that I couldn't write or call my young lover because he refused to give me any of his contact details. Yes, it's humiliating, but he insisted that we only meet weekly at the same place at the same time, and that was our only contact. I comforted myself thinking that Sam wanted to keep our relationship secret from Alex, but now I realize everything is quite the opposite. So I couldn't speed up my date with Sam. The remaining time before it was spent either in tears or in futile attempts to reach my son. Finally, at the right time, I showed up in this cursed hotel room. When I entered, Sam wasn't there. Instead, there was an envelope on the bed, and inside I found a flash drive. I waited for Sam for another hour, but he never came. When I got home, I immediately used the flash drive. There was just one file on it, a video that shattered my life. When I opened it, I had a meltdown. It was the first real meltdown I had in years. I cried and screamed, but no one came to comfort me. It seemed no one would ever come again. In the video, there was my son Alex, my ex-husband Tom, and my lover Sam. They were sitting at a large table, and Alex, who was in the middle, started talking. He said that he knew everything about me. It turned out that I had no real control over my son's life, and my pressure on him, as well as my authority, was nothing but self-deception that fed my ego. I realized that Alex had broken free from my influence back in childhood since he spent half of his time with his father. I knew that was a mistake. I should have appealed and forbidden them to see each other. Alex said that his father and his new wife had given him what I never gave him, real love, trust, and acceptance. Alex explained that throughout his childhood, he had kept hoping I would change, but I ignored and didn't notice his attempts to build a real emotional connection with me. I ignored his tastes and preferences, was rude to his friends and girlfriends, and wasn't interested in him as a person.
It's worth noting that both Lucy's ex-husband and her son have demonstrated remarkably healthy strategies in dealing with an abuser. They avoid emotional closeness, remain distant, and steadily move toward cutting all ties with her. In my view, this is an optimal course of action, though it clearly frustrates and even enrages Lucy. Unfortunately, I must state that Lucy is, in fact, the abuser, though she refuses to see herself that way. I encountered a very specific reaction from Lucy when I shared my observations, which I do here with her full awareness and consent. She expected me to comfort her wounded ego and offer her techniques of psychological pressure to turn the situation in her favor. Naturally, I refused to engage in such blatantly unethical behavior, which deeply disappointed her. Lucy continues to see not only her son and ex-husband but everyone in her life as mere tools for achieving her personal goals. I want to draw attention to Lucy's complete lack of empathy. I pointed this out in our private conversations and believe it is important to emphasize it here. Her refusal to understand her own son's emotions makes it clear that she is indifferent to anyone but herself. Lucy's emotional neglect of her son became the metaphorical key that freed the boy from her influence.
Alex said that he wasn't my project, but a personality that I never learned to see. I was consumed with rage. How dare he? What does he think he's doing? I'm his mother. Then Tom spoke. He explained that Alex had been disappointed in me for a long time and realized that he wanted to erase me from his life. However, since Alex was a minor, and I was the primary guardian, he didn't want to act decisively. Tom knew I was under the illusion that I controlled my son, and as long as I kept deceiving myself, Alex was safe. It never even occurred to me to follow my son or interfere with his communication with his friends, his girlfriend, or his father. Tom said that I never gave my son either space or the opportunity to be himself, which is why he went to therapy. With its help, Alex freed himself from the guilt and complexes I had tried to impose on him. In that therapy, he was told that I had always wanted him to be something more to me than just a son. It hurt to hear that. I never looked at him like a man. That was nonsense. But maybe I really wanted him to fill the emptiness left by others. For a long time, Alex refused to believe that I was a hopeless egoist and manipulator, but the seduction of his friend was the last straw. That's when Sam joined the conversation. He explained that he wasn't naive or stupid, as I thought. He said there was nothing special about me, and our first night together didn't provoke any strong emotions in him and remained a trivial matter. At these words, I turned red so much that I could feel the warmth on my face. In the video, Sam said that he immediately confessed everything to Alex. My son didn't just take the news about my behavior hard, he decided to hide that he knew about it. They figured out my plan and outwitted me. Then Sam suggested an unusual way of getting revenge. Sam didn't just use me. I had become part of his plan to eliminate the last levers of influence over my son's life. The thing is, Sam recorded every one of our meetings with a hidden camera. Now he had several very compromising videos. Moreover, when I was in the shower, he snuck into my phone and downloaded the conversations I had with acquaintances, in which I spoke about my true attitude towards my son and my ex-husband. If I try to pursue Alex, all this material will end up in court. It will be enough not only to completely discredit me but also to easily obtain a full restraining order. Alex kept his word. He said he had been moving while I was on dates with Sam. Now he would live with his father for a while. All the money he earned would go toward preparatory courses for college, just as he wanted. Next year, he would definitely achieve his goal and study alongside his beloved girlfriend, with whom he had been in a relationship for over a year. He would study, work, and build his happy life without me. Alex forbade me to contact him in any way, to look for him or stalk him. If I broke this ban even once, he would go to court. And what he had already shared about himself was the last thing I would ever know about him. This video was his farewell to me. My son said he was very sorry to end our communication, but I had ignored him and never even noticed either his true self or all the chances for improvement he had given me over the years. The video ended, and at first, I was incredibly angry. He's my son. My property. My support. My boy. How dare he say goodbye to me and talk about some chances? I'm the one who gives him the chance to fix everything. But who am I going to say this to? I know Thomas went to another state, and that's it. I didn't care about his life. I only needed his money, so I have no way of contacting him. Find Sam? Yes, I know where he lives. But I have no real leverage over his behavior. I couldn't emotionally bind him to me. Our meetings were just an adventure for him with a beautiful older woman. Also, I believed Alex would really go to court if I managed to find him. And that's how I ended up alone. This was about 6 months ago. Half a year of silence, loneliness, and pain. Half a year I hoped the door would open, and he would come in. Of course, that didn't happen. I realized he would never come back, and that I had actually wasted my life on my own son. However, during therapy, I was told that I had wasted my life on my own selfishness. When I first started telling my story, I didn't believe it. I wanted the professor to share some psychological pressure techniques so that I could win back my son. I wanted to analyze the situation with a professional. But now I think the situation really can't be changed, and that I ruined everything myself. Now, I live alone in a small apartment, without money, without a job, without a single call from someone who might care about me. I have no friends, no family. I don't know how to fix the situation. I don't know where to start. I don't know if it's even possible. But I can't stay silent anymore. Because this story is the only thing I have left. And that's why I'm scared.
Thank you for listening to Lucy's confession until the end. I hope your comments and assessment of her actions will help her see the destructiveness of her behavior. Her current state of isolation and abandonment is not only the result of her past but also a heavy burden. Lucy is a vivid case of toxic motherhood. She predicted her frustration with her husband onto her son, tried to raise him as a tool for fulfilling her whims, and ignored his personality, preferences, and goals. But the fact that Lucy herself was always the center of her own universe was what led to her downfall. She was so blinded by egoism that she didn't even notice her son slipping out of her grasp, or how brilliantly he, his father, and his friend outmaneuvered her manipulations. Now, for the first time in her life, Lucy feels the full weight of true loneliness. It seems she realized it too late, as her son is now absolutely unwilling to have any contact with her. Is his decision fair? Should he give his mother another chance, perhaps in a few years? Share your thoughts in the comments. My next client, by contrast, had loving parents and a good life. But a combination of unjustified grievances and destructive ideology led him to several irreversible mistakes. He is now seeking understanding and guidance, so I invite you to the next story. Meanwhile, please like this video and subscribe to my channel to hear more anonymous and sincere confessions from my clients.